Be good.
We're on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 3:02 p.m. I am calling to order the pre-certification meeting of the Board of Elections the Board of Elections and Registration. And again, meeting called to order at 3:02 p.m. I invite all of those that are rise with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda in front of them. Any proposed revisions or questions about the agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bruning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. All those in favor, if you'll just say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion passes unanimously. Next up on the agenda is ballot adjudication. Director Fall.
Sure. So we don't have any ballots that will need to be voted on for adjudication. We had 23 provisional ballots from Election Day. 20 of those were out of precinct and will be duplicated. The panels are coming in at 4:30 p.m. 2 of them were other reasons that have been marked as yes, and 1 is still pending cure. So that voter has until 5 p.m. to cure their ballot. It was an ID. And then the 2 AVM outstanding cures are still pending cure as well. So those 3 voters have until 5 p.m.
So there's 23 to do what?
There's 20 that need to be duplicated.
20 to be.
Okay. Absentee ballots?
Yeah, so just the 2 left.
Just the 2.
For cure.
Okay.
That they have until 5
Until 5 p.m.
to cure.
Anyone have any additional questions about ballot adjudication? No. Okay. Election materials review.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up my slides here, and then we have in front of you guys have the election summary report, which is the same as Friday night or Tuesday night, sorry. And I have extra copies here for anyone who would like a copy. So outstanding activities, like I said, the provisional ballots will be finalized today. So the panels are coming in at 4:30 p.m. And then voters have until 5 p.m. those 3 voters to finish their cure. And then after that, Monday morning, we will upload the final and complete results. So that'll be done prior to the Monday meeting. Our RLA is going to be next Tuesday, May 6th from 9 to 5 here at the office. There'll be 6 teams. The parties have already been notified, so each party can send in 6 designees. And then, of course, there will be an open viewing area for the general public. So for review, these are what our numbers are looking at. You can see them on the summary sheet in front of you as well. We had a perfect match between the ballots cast and the numbered list, which you'll see on your flash drives and the materials that were provided to you. So for election day, 10,066 ballots cast, as well as check-ins for 4.19%. Advanced voting was 6,217 for 2.59%. Absentee by mail, as of now, is 163 with 0.07%. And then that puts us at a total until the provisionals are counted at 16,446 for 6.84%. And then just a little breakout turnout by district. District 2 had 8.25% turnout and District 4 had 5.61% turnout. So just a little way to break down the data that's in front of you.
Anyone have any questions with respect to the election report, summary report information?
I just ask, have we had any negative comments from either of any of the candidates? Questions? Nothing?
No, I haven't spoken with any of the candidates or got any calls from any campaigns.
Great.
What was your percentage on District 2?
8.25%.
Okay, thank you.
And then on Monday, we'll have the breakdown by parties as well, which is done by the summary sheet in front of you, but I just have a different visual display for you to see that as well. So you can see turnout by district and by party.
Do the thumb drives have the by precinct?
Yes, you'll have this statement of votes cast, which is this election, 29 pages. So you have a PDF copy of this on your flash drive that has the precinct breakdown.
Very good.
Yes. As well as the numbered lists.
Any other questions? Any board member comments?
As far as on the summary report only?
No, just, questions about election materials review, and then the next item on the agenda is board member comments, generally.
Can you just list what you've provided us here?
Sure. Let me double check my list to make sure I have. So you have the slides from today, the slides I just presented. You have the election summary report PDF, the statement of votes cast PDF. You have the ePulse election day numbered list, the ePulse AIP numbered list, which is not for public release, and then the Jarvis voter participation list.
And those are in Excel and PDF?
The two ePulse number lists and Jarvis voter participation are only in Excel.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
sure. And the voter participation from Jarvis, there's just a tab. There's a tab with all the data and then a tab for ABM, a tab for AIP, and a tab for election day. So you can see those broken out by type of turnout.
And then the ePulse AIP numbered list, that's not for publication, that's Excel as well.
Yes, yes.
And those are the standard documents that you generally provide.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, since we started having these meetings, those are the same
Right.
documents I provided on
Okay,
flash drive.
just clarify.
Yes.
All right, any other questions either about the election materials review or for that matter with respect to the next item agenda, just general board member comments?
I would just like to request Daniel to investigate if we could do these meetings virtually.
The pre-cert.
The pre-cert meetings, yeah.
Sure. I'll look, that I just, in thinking through it, I remember there was certain circumstances you could hold them before the pandemic. Those were loosened and broadened during the pandemic, but my recollection is maybe they left them expanded, but I'll look at it a little bit. It's an open meetings act question, but there are boards.
Counties are doing any virtual meetings?
I'll find out.
The state elect, to the point that Jennifer made earlier, the state electric
Right.
board itself meets virtually, and it's not in a situation where they're having like a less substantive conversation.
Right.
They're having very substantive conversations that last hours virtually,
Right, we're
so.
not voting on anything. you know,
Exactly.
It's informational. We could still broadcast, but I think might save a lot of
Sure.
driving time.
Yes,
And people can tune in.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
same way we did during the pandemic.
So it's still a public
Meeting.
forum,
Yeah.
right?
But for the Friday, I mean, I'm not saying we need to do it for everything, but for these pre-cert meetings,
Mhm.
I think it might be.
This,
something to explore.
I'm gonna make a
The smaller
clarification.
ones. Yeah, you
Smaller
mentioned that,
insert.
like the midterm, we could definitely see having this pre-cert meeting in
Sure.
person, but for the two previous elections
Right.
that we had, this one, the PSC, any runoff for
Right.
PSC,
I don't think it has to be an absolute.
right,
All,
just a possibility.
all statewide should be in person.
That
That
would
would be
mean
an easy
PSC.
way to clarify it.
I don't know that we, well, I would not be in favor of just a hard and fast rule all statewide. PSC in June is statewide.
Well, that's true.
That's statewide. And I wouldn't be in favor of having that pre-cert meeting, requiring to have it,
Right.
in person or. in
All
person.
statewide, non-special election.
I just don't know that we need to clarify. I think
Yeah.
it's just, we can decide on a,
Mhm.
The board
know.
can
right.
Whatever board is in place at that time, you can decide.
But it'd be good to know, Daniel, if you have a legal opinion as to whether or not, I think that's probably the first question on the table, and
Yeah, and the flexibility.
state that publicly, that that would be my interest.
Okay, sure.
Now, if anybody has comments from the public at our next meeting.
I had one, not related to the election, but
Mhm.
related to the discussion we had Tuesday night about precincts. And the more I've thought about it, I really would encourage you to look at clamping down on the number of precincts. The 148 precincts is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
And-
we agree. We agree. I think we don't want to restrict, we don't want to change too much ahead of next year, just in case something were to change.
I'm thinking
That's
just-
why we want to phase in what we're doing, but we agree that it's, especially when the county or when the state likely moves to hand marked paper ballots, it will really, really change how we do our precincts, so.
I would be satisfied with 50 precincts and 20 advanced voting sites.
You and me both.
I also think we need to have some kind of formula.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think any of us want to just pick a number and say, this is how many precincts
Right.
we want.
No.
It needs to be a formula of machines and voters and all that, so we can really look at the data and see what makes sense.
Right, and that's how we adjust now that we have the freedom to adjust what we call the number stock, which is how we assign the equipment.
Mhm.
We do look at the turnout and we
Yeah.
flex up, flex down, and we're doing that currently now that we don't have that restriction of the equipment numbers. But yeah, there's definitely a science to that, and it'll, like I said, significantly change in the future when we move to hand marked paper ballots, because we'll only be worried about scanners and 88 machines, so it'll be significantly less equipment to be concerned about.
Right, I think the other consideration, I did share this with both Debbie as well as with Stacy on Tuesday. No one knows what's going to happen down under the Gold Dome, and one rationale with respect to decreasing that is, well, people aren't showing up on election day. But if you get rid of advance voting or no excuse advance voting, I would presume your election day turnout is going to increase.
Right.
And so I agree that we need to consider some changes, but I would be very hesitant to undertake a lot of changes until we figure out what's going to happen with the legislature. And there, we've heard it. There is an active group of folks that really want to get rid of no excuse AIP or absent or advanced voting. And I think that would really, if that took place, then we'd probably have to flex back up.
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
I just think it's something to consider.
To add to that, I'd also like to point out this election, unlike most of the past, had a higher turnout for election day than early.
That's something that we
So-
noticed with these small elections so
Yeah.
far this year, is that I think people know there's not gonna be a line on election day, so they're fine with waiting. Whereas in the larger elections, they're worried for those 2, 3, 4 hour lines we used to have, and that's why they're coming to vote early. So we noticed last year, they definitely voted early. So far this year, they've voted more on election day.
But to Tori's point, if it becomes excuse only, AB, that will increase, I think,
Oh,
a
absolutely.
great deal.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure how you can project what that would be.
We would look back to the pre-2020 numbers and base our numbers off of that.
Way before that.
Yeah, before the no excuse, before the increase in absentee.
Hence the concern about getting it down to 100 or, I think it's more of a formula, some type of.
Yeah,
I would think you could go by the demographics that we actually have in the census at some point on the people who would be eligible age-wise. I'm not sure we could track the disabilities people, but I think we're gonna have to be pretty scientific if we're changing precincts based on this because we don't know.
Right, yeah, that's why we want to do a tiered approach, like I mentioned, where we scale back the ones that are across the street from each other and next door
Right,
to
that
each
does
other
make
first, and then see how we can decrease, and working with the municipalities as well, is a big piece of that, because they inherently are concentrated in those cities, so.
Well, and some of those were set up, I know that there are some that are across the street from each other in a sense because of the amount of voters
Right.
that are registered at those
Yes,
precincts.
yes.
So I think one of the, before we just look at sort of like consolidate, and I know you're doing this, but I think to Stacy's point, it's more of a formula of looking at historic turnout and
Right.
like number of active registered voters, because we can't, for instance, take our two largest polls and combine them just because they're
course.
across the street from
Of
each other. I know you won't know all that.
Yeah,
I'm just sort of
yeah.
saying that for publicly.
Yeah,
That like, we're not gonna merge people together who are sitting in
Right.
areas that have a robust active voter registrations in two precincts and merge those two together.
Right, so to paint a picture of the things we look at, a lot of it is in some of the data in that spreadsheet I provided to y'all for the co-location, so we look at the registered voters, we look at the turnout in the past, cycles, the past 4 years of elections. And then we look at the site survey, which is the actual dimensions of the room and how many people can fit in that room, how many machines can we fit in that room. We look at the aerial map of how much parking there is there. If it's a school, how does that change when school's in session and when there's not? And then based on all of that information together is when we decide on, partnering up locations. So we try to take the most holistic view. We also look at the wait times because all the poll managers have to log the wait times throughout the day for every election. So we look at that as well.
Are we looking at any, what I'll call super precincts like Bolton uses with State Farm Arena and a couple other locations where in my opinion, it would make sense to put them in heavily populated areas with lots of apartments, i.e. the Battery area, Kennesaw, the campus area where you have intense density. Have we looked at a super precinct?
So we don't necessarily use that type of language. We're looking at combining no more than 3 precincts together at this time. Just because we're not sure what's gonna play out for next year. But surprisingly, in that Battery area, there's actually not a concentration of polling places that are close together in the Smyrna Vinings area. The city of Smyrna, we have to be careful with, of course, because it's within this municipality and they have different rules in terms of where voters can vote. But in the Vinings area, we are looking at combining some of those that are close together, but it would be a maximum of 3 polling places combined together, not necessarily a giant site for like all of the, southeastern portion of Cobb County. We're not looking at that quite yet. We want to kind of phase this in so our voters feel comfortable and prepared while also not, cutting off our nose to spite our face ahead of a really big turnout next year.
We kind of know they're willing to travel because of early voting. So a lot of our norms are kind of thrown out the window with their willingness to travel miles, not blocks.
For some demographics, yeah, there's still the faithful calls we get of voters saying that they need to be voting in their neighborhood. So just being mindful of what that demographic typically looks like without, obviously we can't please all 100% of voters. And
Right.
so it's balancing what is convenience versus what is true accessibility for voters is the balance that we try to strike.
And I think that also goes back to something that's previously been said, and I know that I've heard it from you, Debbie, making certain that the polling location is within the precinct boundaries. And I know that we're looking at the precinct boundaries, or we are not looking at, the office is looking at the precinct boundaries. You'll have conversation with us, but then subsequently that decision will be made by the Board of Commissioners.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So it's kind of step 1,
Yes,
or step 1A.
yes.
Okay. Well, anything additional with respect to that? Okay, Mr. White, is there a need for executive session?
That's all right.
Okay.
It's a good thing I might have taken you out.
Just to make certain, to make sure that this commute was worth everyone's while. Alrighty, so then our next meeting obviously is our regular meeting, our certification meeting that will take place on Monday at 3 p.m. at 100 Cherokee in the BOC room. And if there is nothing further, the meeting is adjourned at 3:20 p.m.